on, y'all? It's kind of hot and sticky out here today because we had um, thunderstorms in the forecast, and it did it a little bit today, very short time, but then it's gonna do it again later on tonight. That music you hear behind me is Hari Krishna down here on the plaza doing what they do on the street corner. But there's a lot of news. I'm not gonna prolong the time. I'm gonna get into it, but so today, Israel sent drone strikes that destroyed a cache of long-range missiles, grenades, rifles, ammo, and anti-tank missiles at multiple sites in Lebanon today. And they hit an ammunition plant. They hit an ammunition plant in Lebanon. So it was an ammunition plant, a warehouse that stored long-range missiles. So that was a good thing. They destroyed it. There's been a barrage of attacks again today that Israel has struck against. There's drone strikes. There's been missiles and drone strikes that Israel has sent to in Lebanon today. Because now at this point with Netanyahu, he's on the offensive. He's trying to just get rid of Hezbollah altogether, period. Eliminate them out of Israel and focus on Iran at this point. But the IDF foiled an assassination attempt on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Galant. So that was a good thing. The Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah gave a televised speech today calling Israel's cyber warfare attacks as massacres that crossed all red lines. He's talking like Vladimir Putin now. He said that Israel has crossed all red lines when they did the 2-day cyber attacks. And I haven't checked the news today, but they're saying that they think that they're doing a third wave of attacks today. So I'm going to have to go and look and see, just what's going on with that. But he said they've crossed all red lines, and he said, this is what Hassan Nasrallah said in his speech. So he went on ahead and gave a speech. His stuff didn't blow up. So he gave a speech, and he said in his speech, he said that he wished for the wounded from the attacks to enjoy the pain because it's a blessing from God. So everybody who got blinded and lost fingers and eyes and whatever and got their face blown off, he said it was a blessing from God that they experienced that. Okay, so whatever. Israel also submitted a ceasefire proposal to the Biden administration. And in this proposal, they again just called for, or they offered to exchange for the safe return of the 101 hostages that that are currently being held. Israel said that they want to, just go ahead and make an even exchange for the hostages and to allow Yahya Sinwar to be exiled out of Gaza. Most people are saying it's a long shot. That's not going to happen because Yahya Sinwar is not going anywhere. And like I always say, he's Palestinian, he's Arab, he's Muslim, and he's not going to leave. They're probably going to have to kill him or capture him. He's not leaving Gaza. He's not going to give up. So, but that's the proposal that they have, and it does not include a withdrawal of troops from Gaza. So it's a long shot. It's probably not going to happen. Iran's Revolutionary Guard commander Hussein Salami told Hassan Nasrallah that Israel will face a crushing response from the axis of resistance. And what he means by the axis of resistance is military forces, a combination or coalition of military forces that includes Iranian allies such as Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Iraqi military forces. So he says that they are going to all join forces together to make Israel pay for the barrage of attacks, the cyber warfare, and everything that they are just inflicting on Hamas and Hezbollah that has inflicted a lot of damage. Another disturbing story I read earlier today was about in Malaysia, where the police in Malaysia have rescued over 400 children from group homes ran by this Islamic business group. And what the police did is they rounded up and arrested like 200 people that worked and ran these group homes and were a part of this Islamic business group called GISB. They arrested them because they ran these group homes with these children where the children were allegedly physically and sexually abused. The children some of the children had been in the home since they were infants. And these homes were ran by religious teachers and caretakers who would abuse the children, and they would medical exams have proved that the children, or have confirmed that the children have been sodomized. Some of the children, they suffered from burns. They would burn them with hot metal spoons to punish them for disobedience. So those kids thank the Lord that they were rescued, and I pray that God heals their hearts and their bodies, and to be able to provide them in a safe, clean place, to stay where they don't have to suffer no type of abuse like that anymore. And I hope he punished these people justly, in his just way, for what they did to these kids. It's over 400 kids, and they arrested like nearly 200 people, adults, for doing this to these kids in a group home, like charity group homes. That's in Malaysia. Really sad. But these kids, it said medical exams confirmed that they suffered many long-term physical and emotional injuries. So, yeah, that's sad. Elon Musk is under investigation by the Secret Service because of the deleted tweet that he put on there about why White President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have not been the subject or the target of assassination attempts like Trump. He tweeted that. I guess he felt because he owned the platform, X, that he can tweet that and not have to suffer no type of repercussions behind it. But I guess when you got money, you think you can do any and everything, and you have this godlike complex that you think you're untouchable. But he tweeted that and put himself on the Secret Service's radar. So, yeah. Pride comes before destruction. That's what the Bible says. So, some people just have to be humble. The European Parliament has adopted a resolution allowing Ukraine to strike deep inside of Russia. But we all know that Putin has already said that if they do make the decision to do that, then Russia is going to act accordingly. And they're threatening nuclear war, pretty much. What else? I'm getting my thoughts together. I have my notes written down. Oh, something that I wanted to really just go into detail about. I had posted a video the other day about the migrants. Well, there is a thing with the migrants that are getting onto these apps, these gig apps, these platforms like DoorDash and Instacart and things like that. Well, There's a story that happened yesterday in Texas where 3 men committed a home invasion posing as DoorDash workers, where they entered into, well, the lady, the victim, the mother, she looked and she saw these DoorDash workers, 2 men dressed as DoorDash workers, coming up to her door, and she's like, I didn't know what a DoorDash. So they forced their way into this lady's home, and tried to rob her, telling her to, trying to find things that they could take of value to rob her, tied her up in front of her 2 children. So luckily, a neighbor, the neighbor either heard it or saw what was going on and called the police. When the police came on the scene, they engaged in a shootout with the police and shot one of the police in the leg. But luckily, throughout all of this, nobody was hurt. But the names of the 3 suspects that were taken in custody were, 2 of their last names were Perez. One was 35, I think. The other one was 38. And then an 18-year-old whose last name was Garcia Chavez. So to me, that sounds like they were migrants using DoorDash. And that's the thing that's been going on now with these apps like DoorDash, Uber, and Lyft, is that these migrants are getting on these apps some type of way. They're buying these accounts, or they're being lent these accounts some kind of way, getting on these platforms and being disguised as DoorDash workers and Uber drivers who commit crimes. And so that's what it seems like to me. This situation is that these were migrants posing as DoorDash workers and committed a home invasion and tied up this mother in front of her kids. But luckily, her neighbors saw and called the police. And when the police came, they began to have a shootout with the police. But they're in custody now, so we'll figure out, we'll find out more maybe later on what happened. But I think that was a situation like that where the migrants were on one of those gig apps. So be careful, y'all, when you're ordering DoorDash. If you do that on a regular basis, be careful and just know that that's what they're doing too. They're getting on these DoorDash platforms and using DoorDash to commit crimes. And not even that, they're just knocking people, that's further knocking people out of jobs, when they do that. So they're committing crimes and they're knocking people out of jobs. So be careful, y'all. But they're in custody, so I don't know. But they had Hispanic sounding names, so I'm thinking that they're migrants. But anyway, thank God everybody was okay. In another story, this 43-year-old grandmother shot a 6-month-old baby in the face. Her 6-year-old granddaughter. No, she shot her in the eye. In Ohio, 43-year-old shot her 6-month-old granddaughter in the eye. And I don't know if the woman was high or what, but she was shooting at several of her family members. She shot the baby's mother, her daughter, in the head and grazed the mama in the head. And they said when she shot the baby in the eye, she picked the baby up off the bed and gave her to the mama after she shot both the baby and the mama and smiled. If that ain't evil, I don't know what is. So when they arrested her, they asked her, why did she do it? And she said she did it because she told the police, she told the detective, that is not my grandbaby. She said, I'm sorry, but not sorry. She said that they were trying to take her money and leave, and she was not going to allow that to happen. That was her reason for doing what she did. They said she assaulted and punched another family member in the face. They said she shot through the door to get to the baby and the mother before she shot them. And then she ran. I guess she left out of the house, and then the family members called the police and told them where she was, and they tracked her down. I got the video showing all of that on here that I'm going to post. But this evil woman, she expressed no remorse whatsoever, and she did this all for money. And the sheriff, the sheriff that told the reporters, he was like, you know what, this is the most vile and disgusting thing that I've ever seen. He said, I ain't never seen nothing like that. It don't get no more disgusting and vile than this. To shoot a 6-month-old baby, intentionally shoot a 6-month-old baby in the eye, and this is your grandchild? For the love of money is the root of all evil. That's what the Bible says. So, yeah. And she's only, guess what? They charged her with a first-degree felony for assault. And they dropped the other 2 assault charges that she did to the other family members because she pleaded out. So she's only facing up to 11 years for shooting a baby in the eye. Ugh. That's sad. I don't know what this world is going to. But y'all, I posted all of these stories up on the internet. And it's just, this world is getting crazy. So I'm going to check and see what, the news is looking like. Because they said it was another 3rd round of electronic attacks that Israel done. So I'm going to go over looking on that on the news later on, and I'm going to see. But if there's anything else, then I'll be back later on. All right, y'all. Peace. But the thing is with these migrants and what y'all don't see, if y'all not reading between the lines, is how they're able to come over here. I seen a story about some migrants that had only been over here like 2 years, and they came over and they was able to buy a house. The thing about these migrants is that y'all don't realize that they have other sources of income. When you see these migrant women and stuff working at these hotels making $10 and $12 an hour, or these men working on these jobs making $10 and $12 an hour, it's because they can afford to do that where the average person can't, because they live in houses where it's like 10 to 12 people living in houses, living in one house, and maybe 2 to 3 families are living in a house, and they got multiple sources of income. So they're able to go and work at a hotel and make $10 and $12 starvation wages per hour. Because guess what? A lot of them, they have sources of income where they work for the cartels. They're drug mules. They sell drugs. They do human smuggling, and they make a lot of money doing that. So yes, they can afford to work for a minimum wage, because that money that they make it on the side, that untaxed income that they make it on the side, they're making more doing that than they are on that legitimate job. So there's 2 reasons why. Like I said, is they live in a house where there's multiple people, 10, 12 people living in one house, or 5, 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So they can work part-time making $10, $12 an hour and get by. And or they are working other side hustles where they're getting untaxed income, such as working for the cartels, driving people here, human smuggling, driving people, to the border or across the border, whatever. You got a person that may be an immigrant who may have been an immigrant, come over here, and then he goes back and he works with the cartel to bring more people over here, and he's getting paid to do that. Oh, woman, don't back up into me. Do not back into me. But anyway, that's what they do. They make big money driving other migrants over here, helping them get over here to America. They also make money as interpreters on the side. That income that's untaxed. They help other migrants function here. They show them how to go get benefits. They show them how to go use the ATM. They show them how to get IDs. And they also make money on the side doing that too. They make money babysitting on the side, income that's untaxed. They do a lot of different things. And that's how they're able to get up money to buy houses and food trucks and stuff. And yeah, but so that's another thing that y'all need to realize. And that's not being racist, that's just being real, because I call out black people, I call out white people, I call a ball, a spade, and tell it like it is. That's being real, that ain't being racist. Me as a black woman, I deal with that in every aspect of my life, so you can't tell me nothing. But be blessed, y'all. I'll holler back. Bye.
In custody after an HPD officer was shot in the leg during a home invasion in Spring Branch yesterday. This morning we're hearing from the homeowner about what happened and a neighbor who came close to one of the suspects. Igochi Iloka joins us live in the newsroom. And Igochi, some of this was caught on camera.
Ron, it was, and you'll see the beginning stages of this home invasion on surveillance video. Houston police say they were able to respond to it in minutes thanks to a neighbor calling 911 following this scream. Take a listen. On camera, you see a man run inside, shut the front door, and a white car drive away. Before that, Houston police say 2 men knocked on the door of a house on Alderney Drive just before 10 a.m. yesterday. When a woman opened the door, the men rushed inside with her 2 toddlers just feet away. When officers responded, a few shots were fired and Officer Durfee was hit. His partner administered first aid in the field, saving his life. A neighbor saw one of the suspects trying to get in his backyard when police chased him. The homeowner, who was gone, tells us the suspects ransacked the house with his daughter and grandkids inside.
They zip tied my daughter, and she's got a 1 and a 3-year-old.
They look out your kitchen window and see 3 police officers with guns drawn, telling him not to move. It scared the hell out of me.
And really terrifying. That neighbor you just heard from there says the suspect tried to hide his weapon on his car's tire before police arrived. Now, the homeowner tells us his daughter only opened the door because she thought they were food delivery drivers. One suspect was arrested at the house. Another was taken into custody outside a different home. And a third potential suspect driving the white car was detained at a nearby shopping center. We are hoping to get an update on suspect names and possible charges sometime this morning. In the newsroom, Ugochi Iloka, KHOU 11 News.
All right.
This was all sparked by a New York Post report this past September claiming that newly arrived immigrants in New York City are paying current delivery workers to use their accounts to then earn a living. Now, Senators Blackburn, Mike Braun of Indiana, and Ted Bund of North Carolina sent letters to each of the food delivery platforms on Thursday. They believe these apps are, quote, being hijacked by illegal immigrants intent on gaming the system. The danger to Americans and specifically consumers using your services is real, they wrote in part. These illegal immigrants are delivering food directly to consumers' doors without ever having undergone a background check and often without even using their real names. Now, News Nation reached out to all 3 senators for comment. Senator Mike Braun responded to us, placing blame on the Biden administration, saying, quote, we need to close our southern border, and we also need to crack down on opportunities for illegal aliens to find work in the U.S. to remove every incentive to illegally enter our country. Now, Bud, Blackburn, and Braun asked for more info from these companies on their security and accountability measures, and they want to know how many account holders they have already suspended for this alleged activity. These 3 senators want answers to their inquiry by next Monday. That is May 6th. They did praise these platforms for saying they, quote, are improving the lives of so many Americans, but they say they are intent on not only protecting the gig economy, but protecting Americans from migrants showing up on their doorstep.
Plans to encourage and to introduce more halal mortgages to encourage more Muslims to buy houses and to make the houses more affordable for them. Halal mortgages would seek to be consistent in some form with the Islamic law under which interest payments, both the receipt and the payment, are considered sinful. At the moment, the government has only said that it is exploring measures for what it calls the tax treatment of these products. It says it is considering a new regulatory sandbox for these products, language left sufficiently vague as of now, and it is without doubt a tricky area for the government to get into. Halal mortgages do exist already in some form, offered by some minor banks, Islamic banks particularly, and other institutions. Under one model, the bank buys the house and then charges rent. With the transfer of ownership, once the rent paid totals the value of the house. Another is joint ownership with the bank until such time as payments by the Muslim partner reach a level that has been agreed between the two, and yet another is just outright sale where the price factors in what the equivalent of interest payments may have added up to.
President Biden is hosting UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer for a bilateral meeting this afternoon. The 2 leaders will discuss Ukraine's request to ease weapons restrictions. Russian President Vladimir Putin is warning that Ukraine's use of long-range weapons would put NATO and Moscow at war. Let's bring in senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang from the White House. Weijia, it feels like President Biden has been amenable after a certain amount of time to giving Ukraine what it wants. We've seen that with certain aircraft. We've seen that with the ability to strike just within Russia's border. How likely is it that it will happen this time in terms of targets deeper into Russia?
Well, we just heard from John Kirby. He is a spokesperson for the White House National Security Council, who said that we should not expect any announcements on this front and that U.S. policy is not shifting. So that's a pretty clear answer. But that doesn't mean that the Prime Minister from the UK will not continue to try to put pressure on Biden along with other allies to change that position. But Kirby said that there's no change to our view on provision of long-range strike capabilities to Ukraine to use inside of Russia. We also heard from the Pentagon earlier this week that essentially echoed the same thing, saying there is no magic bullet for Ukraine to win this war when asked about a shift in the position for these. And so, you know, when you put these pieces together, plus Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying that there's no announcement impending, you know, perhaps that means that others have read too much into it. However, it could also be allowing President Biden to have this space for those conversations that he will have today with the Prime Minister here at the White House, and an opportunity for him to be the ones, you know, leading this discussion if there is such a major policy change, Lindsay.
So please remind us why Ukraine wants these restrictions eased, and what the risks were and still are in the U.S. making that decision. I mean, it sounds like you just, you know, brought us that news that Kirby says no announcement on that today. But what is the U.S. having to weigh?
Well, of course, Ukraine received its many weapons that it is using in this war from the U.S., from Western allies, from NATO allies. And so that comes with terms. They can't just use them in any way they want. And their argument is that they believe this would really make a dent in winning the war. But that's the big question here. And there are risks associated with it, Lindsay, which is why the U.S. has held the position not to do that, because, of course, it would change the scope of the attack. It would change who is under fire. And so, you know, despite what Ukraine says, there have been many times when the U.S. does not necessarily agree with its assessment of how to move forward on the path to victory.
Weijia Jiang, thank you.
Sure.
County grandmother accused of shooting her own grandchild in the head appeared before a judge just this afternoon. So Mia Harris was indicted by a Butler County grand jury on several charges after allegedly shooting at her 6-month-old grandchild and also the baby's mother. Ken Brown was there for her arraignment today and joins us now live from Hamilton to tell us what happened.
Yeah, the details of this case very troubling, Megan, and it's not guilty pleas all around for Mia Harris, but not just not guilty pleas. She's also attempting to plead not guilty by reason of insanity.
On our next case, State of Ohio versus Mia Harris.
Dressed in Butler County Jail orange from head to toe, Mia Harris walked into Judge Hoy's courtroom for the first time since being indicted on 4 counts of felonious assault and 1 count of improperly discharging a firearm. Harris is accused of shooting at the mother of her grandchild and shooting her 6-month-old granddaughter in the head back on December 9th. This is body camera video of officers arresting Harris.
Step out! Okay. On your face, now!
The sheriff's office told us at the time the child was in grave condition. The prosecutor's office today providing an update that the infant girl's condition has improved. The extent of that improvement is unclear. More than 5 weeks after the shooting took place, Harris is pleading not guilty to all 5 charges she faces. Not only is it a not guilty plea, she's pleading not guilty by reason of insanity.
Granted her plea of not guilty, also not guilty by reason of insanity. Your Honor, I'm going to put a written plea filed by tomorrow. I'm also making an oral motion for suggestion of competency, which I'll put that in writing as well.
Her defense attorney tells us a few members of Harris's family were in the courtroom this afternoon, and as she was escorted back to jail, she turned back to address them. So that not guilty by reason of insanity plea has to come with an evaluation by a professional. There's a competency evaluation as well that has to take place over the next several weeks. Harris is scheduled to be back in court on February 27th at 1 o'clock. Of course, we'll continue to follow this case for you. Reporting live in Hamilton, Ken Brown, Fox 19 now.
The CEO of Global Ikhwan Services and Business Holdings, or GISB, has been detained along with his wife as Malaysian police widen their raid over a child sex abuse case. The surrounding charity homes linked to this firm. Nasiruddin Muhammad Ali was among 19 people detained in an early morning raid today on 4 residential premises in Kuala Lumpur. While Nasiruddin previously admitted to 1 or 2 cases of sexual assault, he denied other allegations of misconduct. 5 other people linked to the company were also detained on the border with Thailand. Police had rescued more than 400 children last Wednesday who had allegedly been exploited and sexually abused. They were found in some 20 welfare homes believed to be linked to GISB. The victims are aged between 1 and 17 years. A total of 171 suspects have been arrested, including a teacher and dorm caretakers. And for more, CNA's Afifa Arifin joins us live. Afifa, tell us more about the charges and what we can expect following these arrests.
Well, Wei Su, many developments happening in the last 48 hours as it appears that the authorities are taking swift action against GISB. Some arrests from the raids last week were already charged in court and new arrests were made on Thursday. Among the latest developments, police have arrested GISB's CEO Nasiruddin Muhammad Ali, his wife, his children and other members of the company's top management. It's understood that among them, 4 of them are the daughters of the late Ashari Muhammad, the founder of Al-Arqam, a religious sect which was banned by the government in 1994. Now, police had conducted a raid at 4 residential units in Bukit Bintang at about 5:40 a.m. On Thursday morning. All 19 of them will be remanded for 7 days as investigations continue. Meanwhile, also on Thursday morning in Negeri Sembilan, that's one of the states where the raids were conducted in last week, 3 male teaching assistants and caretakers from a religious school there have been charged with 14 counts of sexually assaulting 5 children between the ages of 9 and 11. The 3 men are the first to be charged with sexual assault related to the raids last week. Now, these offences were allegedly committed at the religious school in Kuala Pilah sometime between 2022 and 2023. The case will be mentioned next on October 30th, and if convicted, they could be jailed up to 20 years and caned as well. Now, of course, all of these developments follow Wednesday's events, where the police intercepted 2 vehicles bearing the GISB logo, which were attempting to enter Thailand. 5 men were detained, one of them the son of a GISB leader, although no further details were disclosed. Also on Wednesday, a man linked to GISB was also charged in Putrajaya Court for criminal intimidation.
FIFA, as you mentioned, news of this broke last week, and when it did, I remember considerable public outrage. It's been several days. In those days, have government authorities put in place any measures to reassure the public that children in care homes are kept safe?
Well, indeed, Wei Su, following the shocking revelations from last week's raids, it has raised alarm all across Malaysia. We heard from Malaysia King Sultan Ibrahim ordering an immediate and thorough investigation into this matter. The cabinet has also discussed, and they talked about the welfare, the future prospect training, religious education of all of the 400 children and teenagers who were rescued by the police last week. And across the country, we have seen many states stepping up their inspection, enforcement efforts of children's shelters, as well as any homes that are linked to GISB and its network. In Johor, for example, the state government has ordered an immediate inspection of all state-registered children's shelters. Similarly, in Selangor and Perak, they're also monitoring, observing, investigating some of the welfare homes and Islamic schools related to GISB, as well as some of the company's premises. Over in Borneo as well, in Sabah, we know that an investigation will be carried out to see if there are any links between GISB and the deviant teachings associated with that banned sect Al-Arqam.
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox 934 on the East Coast and 634 on the West Coast. We are following this breaking news coming out of the Middle East at this hour as Israel police say they have foiled a plot to assassinate high-ranking Israeli officials, and that includes Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. A spokesperson for the Israel police explains that the, quote, significant plot was uncovered by his department and the Shin Bet. This is a photo of the 73-year-old suspect, Modi Mamin. Police say the Israeli citizen was able to smuggle himself into Iran at least twice to meet with Iranian intelligence, working with them in an attempt to assassinate Netanyahu, as well as Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and the former Prime Minister of Israel. He was also reportedly paid by Iran to carry out missions for the country. This all comes days after it was revealed that the Hezbollah terror group plotted to assassinate former high-ranking defense officials within Israel. The spokesperson for the Israel Police Department making a brief statement that he posted on social media a short time ago.
This is a significant plot that was uncovered by the Israel police and the Shin Bet. While Israel is at a war on several fronts, an Israeli citizen smuggled himself into Iran on 2 different occasions to meet with Iranian intelligence agents, and he expressed a willingness to commit serious acts of terrorism on Israeli soil, including plotting the assassination of high-level officials, amongst them the Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. The suspect, who has since been apprehended, sought large sums of money in exchange for providing intelligence and additional support to Iranian intelligence officials. The support included attempts to recruit and to intimidate other Israeli citizens activated by the Iranian regime who failed to execute assigned tasks. The Israel police, in close collaboration with the Shin Bet and other security agencies, will continue a relentless effort to monitor, to intercept, and dismantle Iranian operations aimed at recruiting and activating Israeli citizens for hostile purposes. Thanks to the tireless work of the Shin Bet and Israel Police's Lav 433 unit, we're able to thwart preemptively this plot and protect the security of our nation.
And that right there was the spokesperson for the Israel Police Department saying, of course, that they did uncover and foil this plot that has been months and months in the making. But they did release that photo of the suspect that you see right there on your screen. The time now 9:37 on the East Coast and 6:37 on the West Coast. Do have to get another quick 2-minute commercial break in, but on the other side, we'll get right back into your top stories and live events. You're watching Live Now from Fox.
Lebanon was on the edge of its seat waiting for Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah's speech today. The cafe behind me was full earlier as customers gathered to see what he would say. And despite acknowledging the gravity of the events of the last 2 days as a painful blow to the group in which 37 people were killed and thousands were injured in an operation by Israel that detonated thousands of pagers, he still maintained a calm demeanor and said that the group's resolve would not be shaken and they would only be made stronger. As he spoke, low-flying Israeli jets let off a massive sonic boom and released flares over Beirut, briefly terrifying residents. But the panic was minor and it was brief, despite the horror that Lebanese people have seen over the last few days this week. Nasrallah reiterated that the cross-border fighting between Hezbollah and Israel would not end until there is a ceasefire in Gaza. He said the fighting would not stop until the fighting in Gaza also stopped.
نقول لحكومة العدو، لجيش العدو، لمجتمع العدو، جبهة لبنان لن تتوقف قبل وقف العدوان على غزة.
He also said the group would not capitulate to Israel's goal of making Hezbollah stop its fighting against Israel in South Lebanon and vowed that Israel would not be able to succeed in its stated goal of returning its own residents to northern Israel. He also said he hoped that Israel would dare to step foot into Lebanese territory to create a security buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel, and that Israel would then see Hezbollah's true military capabilities.
Any predictions?
Matt, can we go back to the Secretary's travels? Can you help us understand why he's not going to Israel on this trip, given every other trip to the region since October 7th he has?
So I'm not going to speak to where and where he might fully go, because obviously he's on the trip. And sometimes we do add stops, which is not to say that we will be heading on to Israel. It's not something he intends to do now. He is traveling to Egypt for a couple of specific reasons. One, because we want to conduct this strategic dialogue with Egypt, something that we have been planning for some time. We have a number of important bilateral issues with Egypt that we want to discuss in the context of that dialogue. But two, there are some issues that we need to engage with the government of Egypt on as it relates to this ceasefire proposal that we are trying to bring to fruition. So that's why we're moving to. That's why he's in Egypt. They're one of the mediators. We have some discrete business to do with them when it comes to this proposal. I think it's important to do.
And you didn't see it as important to then go to Israel and continue to try to build political pressure around this deal?
The proposal is not ready to present to Israel at this point, so it would be premature to be presenting such a proposal or doing any other diplomatic engagements around it before we have it ready.
And then one more on the American killed in the West Bank. Has the Israeli government identified which unit in the IDF was responsible for her killing yet?
I don't know if they have. I'm not aware if they have. They may have to other people inside the department. I'm happy.
Is the U.S. pressing them for this information to be able to conduct your own sort of assessment, whether U.S. weapons were involved, for example?
We are pressing them for a full, transparent investigation. Obviously, as part of that that investigation, it would include the unit. I don't think this is information that would be ultimately difficult to come by, and without saying what we will or won't do. Obviously, whenever there are any type of incidents such as this, it is the type of thing that we conduct our own assessments when it comes to fulfilling our own obligations under U.S. law.
Is there any sense that it could be anything but a U.S. weapon given the number of weapons that are given to the IDF?
I don't think I can say one way or the other when there's an ongoing investigation. Yeah, go ahead.
We begin in the United States. The U.S. Secret Service is reportedly looking into billionaire Elon Musk's recent comments on social media platform X after the second attempted assassination on former President Donald Trump. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO, who also owns X, ignited controversy on Sunday when he posted, quote, "Is no one trying to assassinate Biden or Kamala," end quote. Musk was roundly criticized from the left and the right over growing concerns that the post would be seen by his 200 million followers, with some seeing it as a call for violence against President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Following the backlash, Musk was prompted to delete the post, but not before the Secret Service took notice. Now the U.S. Secret Service is tasked with protecting current and former presidents, vice presidents, and other notable officials. And with a second possible breach, America's premier security agency is under enormous pressure to restore its reputation and keep its principals safe from harm. To that end, following the second security incident following Donald Trump, President Biden has called for an increase in funds and personnel for the Secret Service.
I think thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they in fact need more services.
The agency's acting director, Ronald Rose, said they have the highest number of personnel that is possible under congressional approval.
So here's the deal. When it comes to Secret Service protection, we provide the highest level. So, for example, yesterday, counter-assault team elements. I'm not going to go into the number of personnel that we have out there, but we have the highest levels from Secret Service. But it requires all of us to be able to have good conversations and make sure that we're getting the Secret Service where it needs to be. And I'm confident that we will achieve that because we don't have an alternative. Success, we have to have it every day. We cannot have failures. And in order to do that, we're going to have some hard conversations with Congress, and we're going to achieve that.
Now, Elon Musk says his post on X was meant to be a joke and was being taken out of proportion. The controversial billionaire is a close ally of Donald Trump and has repeatedly attacked President Biden and Vice President Harris on the social media platform, including using AI-generated deepfake images to falsely paint the Democratic presidential nominee as a communist dictator. As political violence pervades the atmosphere, Musk has now painted a target on the backs of the nation's most powerful man and woman, and now Secret Service would like to have a word.